don't know what they have to say. It makes no difference anyway, whatever it is, I'm against it. No matter what it is or who commenced it, I'm against it. Your proposition may be good, but let's have one thing understood. Whatever it is, I'm against it. And even when you've changed it or condensed it, I'm against it. I'm opposed to it. On general principles, I'm opposed to it.
Hey, I'm Michael Patton, and I'm really excited about this because I am going to be able to shut down everything that Samson says. And I should be able to do that because I'm the president of Credo House Ministries, and I've got this THM from DTS. Now listen to what he has to say.
Hey, I'm Samson Covatch. I'm from the Theology Pit, and I'm really excited that Michael's going to shut down everything that I have to say. That makes me excited. I have a MAR from TSM. I'll say it like that. This is Divergent Theology, where we take topics. Michael and I both have different backgrounds theologically, and we sort of clash them together, and we see what happens when the world of theology actually doesn't agree with itself. All right, so we are back again, Michael, with another Divergent Theology here. We're going to kick this off, and we are going to talk about baptism. And we're going to see if baptism is really about the individual.
It's about the individual. If it's really about the individual.
Yeah, I don't think baptism is about
Let me get that in my mind. Hold on.
Okay.
Give me 5 seconds. Is it really about the... Okay.
So one of the things that this popped up now, a good buddy of ours, couple good buddy, two good buddies of yours, one good buddy of mine. I would suppose Ed Komashevsky put one of the exegetes there. He put up on his Facebook page a very interesting article about a priest discovering that his baptism wasn't valid, and he has been an ordained Catholic priest since 2017, which means he's not really a Catholic. Okay.
His own baptism wasn't valid.
His own baptism was not valid. And so therefore the baptisms that he has done and any sacraments that he has done in this time, it's not valid. Now here's the question, because they don't have receptionism or anything like that in the Roman Church. So is baptism all about the individual, or does it have virtually nothing to do with the individual at all?
Okay, you're going to have to tell me, whenever you say it's all about the individual, tell me what you're rattling.
Okay, so what I'm rattling is some people say that as a Christian, at some point in your life, you need to be baptized.
Okay.
You have to be baptized, okay? That is something that has to be done to you, all right? My argument is, no, baptism is something that the church has to do, not something that you have to have done to you. It's done to you simply because the church is doing it.
So it's no pressure on you as the individual. It's pressure upon the church leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the Great Commission.
Okay.
It is absolutely 100%. You're going to go out, teach, and baptize. Those two things are in there. Now you're a Baptist, right?
I don't know. I mean, I've grown up Baptist. I've gone to top Baptist type churches. I mean, if it all came down to it, you'd probably see me as one, because I believe in believer baptism, and I also believe in the autonomy of the local church.
Okay, so are you? So is that SBC? Southern Baptist Convention? I didn't know where you fell on that, because
we weren't part of the SBC.
Okay.
We're part of the Bible Church movement. The Bible Church movement is just a disassociated Baptist. It's same thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, as coming from a Presbyterian position, we hold to both, credo baptism and paedio baptism.
Yeah.
Naturally. And so what we have is the point of baptism being a identifying mark of a true church. If you don't have baptism as part of your church body, then you're not seen as a true church. Now,
do
you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I want to throw out an example. Somebody that I know that has been a Christian for a long time. She still hasn't been baptized, and she hasn't felt any pressure to necessarily, And now she's starting to feel that a little bit. She's becoming a better Christian. She's like, well, I probably need to be baptized. I need to. So are you saying what would you say to somebody like her in this circumstance?
Okay. Is she taking communion?
Yes.
Why? Why does she feel compelled to do that?
She does. Everybody else at church does it.
Oh, okay. So it's very visible. It's something that is being put forth as something that needs to be done in order for the church to be a church.
So you're saying kind of like communion. Let's compare to that. If I hadn't had communion in a while, like many people haven't in a long time because of the virus.
Yeah.
And so I maybe a lot of people, you would say if they followed the paradigm that is set up with baptism, they'd be sitting here each day saying, gosh, I feel guilty because I need to go take communion, or, I need to get communion somehow. But it's not their responsibility.
Well, I would say that the responsibility, okay, they're not going out and saying, all right, look, I have to get, bread and wine or grape juice or whatever they're using. Okay. And go home to, in my own home and do it myself. They're saying, no, we have to find a way for the church to provide it. Okay. So with baptism, we have the same type of thing. The pressure shouldn't be on the person to go out there and do that. The pressure should be on the church to say, hey, you're not baptized. It's our job as the church to baptize. This is one of our one of our sacraments that is an identifying factor of the church. If we are not doing this on a regular basis, okay, this has to be, think of it as the same frequency as communion, is baptism. Okay. Just not for, and what's interesting too is the individual, you've been baptized once, I assume, right? Maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know how many times you've been baptized.
I think twice is it.
Okay. Twice is it for me too. Once is a baby, once is an adult. Now, but here's the thing. I have participated in many baptisms in the congregation because the baptism, and I don't know how your liturgy is, but it's just not about that individual. There's a commissioning to the congregation, to the church, to then care for and disciple this person. They're being brought into the church. Baptism is more than just getting somebody wet. So the bigger focus should be on the corporate body, the church, who is baptizing. All right.
So kind of like if you go through if you go to a church and they have a membership, does your church have membership?
Well, we don't like to use that word. We have covenant partners, but yes, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a membership. I remember when we were at Stonebriar and we were starting Stonebriar and we started, not having a membership because kind of our tradition was like that, but then finding it necessary for many different reasons. Funny thing, one of those reasons was because we needed people, we didn't, in order to practice church discipline, we were covered more legally if people had signed something that said they were going to follow the stuff of the church and believe in the church. So it was just a kind of a legal thing that pushed us over the edge. But you're saying part of the church's job, let's say if you do have membership, of bringing somebody into the church, you stop and you ask them, have you been baptized yet? And if they say no, you say, well, yes, you can become a member of the church, as long as everything else is in place and you allow us to baptize you.
Correct. That's actually part of our polity. Yeah. Okay. And so this Sunday, I'm going to be with our session, bringing somebody into our covenant partnership, a membership. And she has already been baptized a couple times, once as a child, once as an adult. And that was a concern of hers. But the liturgy that we use, it is not only like I'm sort of like just interceding in a sense, because it's the session and the congregation that is accepting her as membership. And I'm there as as sort of like a mediator between the presbytery and the session.
Yeah.
But and so I'm the one that does it. And so that's like my role in the whole thing. But that is not an individual thing. Somebody can't come to me into my office and say, I want to become a member, and I can just have them sign a piece of paper, or I can say magic words and they're a member all of a sudden. It's a huge part of the church, the body communal. living together and sharing, things. So
you believe in, you said you believe in paedio baptism and believers baptism, kids baptism, or children
yes,
baptism,
yeah.
and adult baptism. Do you also believe, do you go underwater or sprinkle?
No, you just have to
Doesn't
sprinkle.
matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, it's again, how baptizo can be translated, but I just always find it funny that people that swear that, oh no, it has to be by immersion because baptism in the Bible was always by immersion, and so I ask them, I'm like, well, do you guys use actual wine in your communion? Well, no, it's just grape juice. I'm like, well, oinos here actually means wine, and it's taken from the Passover meal, where if you've ever had a Seder meal, that's a lot of wine.
Well, we get to points where we represent that which we're trying to do according to what it is that we can accomplish and what it is that it communicates well. Now, one of the things about baptism, whenever I think about baptism, same thing I think about communion. I think the example you gave was just really good because we do sometimes substitute. What if you didn't have any bread? Can you use, you have to pass around, a piece of ham or something, I don't know, to represent the body, or whatever it is that's edible. Candy, you pass it around, a Snickers bar, if that's all you have. Would that work? And you would probably agree with me. Yeah, it would. I mean, it's not that. But how far can you go with each one of these? Like with baptism itself, maybe if baptism, if you say as long as is it the act of baptism that is the principle, or does the act represent the principle? In other words, is there another thing we can do to represent baptism besides just baptism? And so the reason why I say this is because I know that whenever you get to some, and this goes back to, last week when we were talking about some dispensationalists, and you're asking me if I was a dispensationalist, and I know lots of dispensationalists, because the tradition I grew up in, all over the board, and I know many dispensationalists that would push, and they would say there's hyper dispensationalism, which got rid of baptism altogether. There's no baptism at all because that happened before, I don't know, the conversion of Paul or the trip that Paul, I don't know when they say the church started, but it's somewhere there. But what about baptism in the sense of just doing something else that represents it? Does the church have to use water? And does it have to use your head? Why can't we use washing of feet?
Yeah, or walking around a waterfall.
There you go.
Which would actually be a better representation of Christ being in the tomb.
Well, do you believe the principle is in the act itself, or do you believe that whatever we do have to represent?
I think it's in it's the representation of the act itself that's done by the church, not to the person.
You said it's a representation of the act itself. So if it's just a representation, the act is not as important as that which it represents, right?
Well, flesh that out a little bit more for me.
Well, what I'm saying is that, again, instead of somebody going down in water or being sprinkled with water, maybe we just let's say the principle is that you're making a confession to be a part of the church, and we're making a confession that we're bringing you into the church. Maybe that's the way you would put it more. Well, why can't we just do it in such a way to where people get up and give their personal testimony instead of being baptized?
Yeah, I think why is because the significance that it has that ties it to Scripture and ties it to the commandment of Christ. So with the discipleship aspect, you have a teaching element that's in there also. Okay, with baptizing them and teaching them. What would you say to that? Would you go so far as to say that? Well, we don't really need the Bible. We don't have to teach them the Bible. We don't have to teach them. All we have to do is teach them how to tithe. That's all they have to learn.
Yeah.
That's the only important thing. If they get that, we're good. So you can take it, that far away. But I think that the reason why is because it's a commandment of Christ. It has a historical significance of the washing away of what's going on. But it is not you washing away your own sins, your own life, your own stuff.
Yeah.
It is that it is being washed away by.
It is somebody else doing it.
Yes.
It's the only time because before Christ, baptism was in the culture, but it was self-baptism.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You would go in and you would wash up. You didn't even have to go under, because that wasn't the important thing. And it was through. And so, the radical thing that John the Baptist was doing was that he was baptizing people. But there was that very visible, action that, because you're cleaned up now, you look different. And then when you get into like the 3rd and 4th centuries, I mean, I don't know if you've ever read like the elaborate rituals that they went through with those, where
I don't think I have.
Oh my goodness! Like I'll have to try and find the one story and send it to you of it's a narrative description from the 4th century of the way that they did it.
Does it have to do with the catechumen who after they went through 3 years and what happened at the end?
Oh yeah, and then it's an all night thing, and it's like a huge like temple thing. But not only are they baptized and cleaned up, but it's totally nude, of course, and they're given like pure white linen to wear afterwards. Like there's a huge physical change, but it is not a physical change that those people brought about on themselves.
Could you see us as a church doing totally nude now?
Oh, I told my wife about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't have been a Christian back then." Like she's like, "I'm not getting. I'm not doing that.
I would have taken my chances."
Yeah, but but this is the interesting thing. So when Jesus gave the commission, to go out there in Matthew 28, he's using a word that is for the people, for the church, for us as the body of Christ, for us as the church to go. And my Pittsburgh translation was always, while yins are being sent at, you are to do these things.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is, if you're a missionary, if you're as a church body, you're to go out. If there's nobody else that can baptize, nobody else that can teach, you're the one to do it. And this is a discipleship type thing also. There's that extra step that a lot of times I really don't I don't like when I see like big events where like maybe at like a Christian concert or something like that, and a bunch of people are getting baptized. They're all just going and doing that.
Because
and stuff.
It's not the church doing it. It has no representation of the church bringing them in, right?
Well, even if it was, it would be, you would have to ask them, okay, are you now part of the person who baptized you, whatever church they're a part of or whatever they're doing? Are you now under their discipleship? Are you their disciple now? Are you? And they would say, well, no, I just got baptized. And I'd be like, well, then that was, I would say that you may have been baptized, but the church that did it in an inappropriate way.
So what if they said, yes, I mean, I'm going to this church that baptized me, even though it's at a big event?
Yeah, then I would say, well, then then that would be legitimate, because they are behaving as a church. But if
so wait a minute, are you saying there can't be evangelists out there baptizing and sending people somewhere after they baptized? I mean, didn't Paul baptize people? Doesn't it say go, and while going you're going to be baptizing? And so therefore it's kind of this movement you're making from place to place.
Well, Paul actually thanks God that he only baptized 2 people.
Oh yeah, true.
Okay. So he wasn't Paul the Baptist. Yeah. All right. That wasn't it. Because, and if you are going to do something like that, I mean, honestly, as an evangelist, if you have that close proximity to a church to do that, well, why are you baptizing?
Well, who baptized Paul?
If you're not doing that.
Who was that guy?
I'm trying to remember his name. It's in Acts. I mean, we could probably look it up.
Acts chapter 5 or 6. But the guy that baptized him, I mean, he wasn't a part of any particular church.
Yeah, and I mean that I would say that he was, but that early on, it wasn't as structured as the way that we're looking at it. But it's now
you sound like a hybrid dispensational.
I do. But Paul's a unique story because he says he was like an abortion. He was born out of time. He was born as someone premature. He was not, he should not have, what happened to him is remarkable and out of the ordinary in the way that he talks about it. So we can't go to him to say that he's the test case, because this is a whole, different thing that's going on. But what I would say is that, the way
but his baptism was legitimate, right?
Yeah, well, again, this isn't about the individual. we have to keep that out of it. I'm not saying if this happens to someone, then I'm saying to them, well, your baptism isn't legitimate. What I'm saying is that the one who baptized you and the way that transpired, don't do that. Like, don't go out and do that to other people. Like, it's not that you're not baptized. It's that they were irresponsible in the way that they.
Are you saying then, whatever church you end up going to, then that you have to be baptized again? Like, if I switch from one church to another, do I have to be baptized into that new church?
How many churches do you think there are?
Well, I'm just saying, if
there's only one
down the street, I go to Faith Bible Church or to.
You're talking denominations. You're not talking churches.
I'm just talking individual churches,
yeah,
right?
There's only
and who you're going to be discipled under, because I can move from being discipled under one group to another group.
Yeah, you're only there is only one church. I hate to break that to you. It's the Church of Jesus Christ, and
Don't
you are
smart with me, dude. Don't get smart.
And you are. Sorry, my degree is back in my office. That shows you that I'm smart. But there's only one church that you're baptized into. That's it. And
well,
so
you're not saying then that an individual church body is baptizing into that individual church body, that anybody who baptized.
You just froze. Yeah, there we go. Oh, hey there, everyone. Did you know that it has not been scientifically proven that you become closer to God by listening to these podcasts or watching these videos? That's right, science has nothing to do with this, but you are increasing your knowledge about God. Hopefully you are engaging your brain with us and thinking, I disagree with these guys, or I really like what they're saying. Either way, continue to listen and continue to watch and really stretch your mind. Engage your mind for Christ. That's what we're called to do as Christians. You can check out our websites at thetheologypit.com or credohouse.org, and you can get tons of great merchandise like this. Now, buying these mugs and t-shirts is not going to keep you out of purgatory, but, do you really want to take that chance? I sure don't. Oh, it's good theology right there. Yeah.
Let me start with this question, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying that if somebody has been baptized, or somebody is baptizing, their baptism is only legitimate if they are baptizing into a church? I mean, like, does there have to be some church that they send them to? Can they baptize somebody and then say you're part of the church? There's one church, and now you're a part of it. And now go find a local church, and they say, which one? You say, I don't know. Here's this one, this one, this one. Here's a good one to go to. You instruct them to go there. And so basically, you're not necessarily discipling them because you're moving on to something else.
I would say that that person is baptized into the church, capital C. But the person doing it is completely irresponsible and ought to be corrected, ought to be refuted, not to be disciplined for what they're doing.
Okay, so you're not trying to illegitimize anything here, except for you're just trying to put the pressure upon local churches to say that this is our as a church. This is, and even as an individual, let's say, that I'm gifted in the church, and I want to go out and evangelize, and that, I mean, hopefully I can bring them into my church or into the particular church, but that's my gift, that it is our maybe privilege, responsibility, excitement to bring people in such a way, rather than the pressure being on the individual who's saved.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I would say that it is, the church's point, because of that commission that was given for us as the church, is not just specific. And this is where I can kind of get into some trouble, with my ordination, that if, I don't see it necessary for someone who is ordained to be the one to baptize. I can see anybody who is a Christian and is part of the church. Like, if you're out on the mission field and something and there is nobody else, like, I think that there are certain, circumstances, within that. But the reason why is because of this invisible union that's taking place between the person and the church body, and the church body, bringing them in, and why that is, important, and why it's very specific. So, that's why it's not so much on the individual, because when you start getting it on the individual, then the individual carries all this burden, and you start to have this, well, was I baptized properly?
Yeah.
Should I be baptized again? Maybe my baptism wasn't valid because I didn't know enough about it. Or, like what happened to my wife's grandmother. She was baptized and everything went down except for her leg. And they said it's not valid.
Really?
Yeah. And she had to be rebaptized because it wasn't a valid baptism. And, there's some churches that, like, they say you can hear the elders actually saying, get him all the way under, or it's not valid.
Yeah.
And so, but then the individual has to come up and say, well, did I take it seriously? Did I really mean it? Maybe I should be baptized again and again and again and again.
Yeah, now, that's what I did. That's what I did. Whenever I was 12 years old, I got baptized, but I wanted to just get out in front of everybody. That's basically what it was. I wasn't thinking about my faith or anything. But then whenever I turned 21, it was much different. Because I was like, this is the first time I'm really committing myself to Christ and to the church. So I got baptized again. What do you say to situations like that?
Well, first off, I would have tried to talk you out of it. I would have said, you don't need to be baptized again. You're already baptized into the body of Christ. You're already here.
So it doesn't have anything to do with me at all.
No, but I don't want to, but here comes the problem too. When you push it too far the other direction of the church, then the church starts functioning like the individual and riddled with anxiety. Are we doing it in the exact right way? And this was the problem with this priest, that he was baptized and they said the words that were used were, we baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And you could see how that's not valid, right?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Because they did not say, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They said, we baptize you.
That's what they said?
Yeah. And that's why they said his baptism isn't valid. So as you can see, the organization can just get just as riddled. We didn't do the same right things as an individual who can say, well, I didn't do the exact right thing.
Yeah. Well, then what is baptism to you? I mean, this is the first that I've heard of it. And it's hard for me to jump in and, yeah, what about? But, it's kind of like, I think I agree with everything. And I think that's where I'm at. But, there's a little bit of pushback that's coming to me. But let me ask you just this. What do you believe baptism is for?
Baptism.
I know who it's for. I know
yeah.
It's for, but what?
It is for our identification with the birth of Christ.
Well, why wouldn't you say then it's for the church's way to identify us with the body of Christ? Because you just put the pressure on the individual there.
Yeah, that's true. But it's for, the virgin birth. The church is birthing people through baptism. Okay. So, and I take this from, T.F. Torrance. I've talked about him before, and, I really, he's one of my favorite theologians, probably my favorite theologian, but he said that, it is upon Christ's unique birth once and for all that our birth depends and is his birth that we are given to share. Baptism thus reposes upon the virgin birth of Christ as well as upon his death and resurrection. So the church, think of the church as the virgin, and each baptism is the new birth that's coming through.
Okay.
So that's what I mean when I when I talk about it's this new birth that's occurring.
I mean, obviously it's for the individual because the individual is benefiting as he comes, as he's born.
Oh yeah,
and so the individual, you're not saying the individual shouldn't want to get baptized, right? Just like the guy said to Philip, hey, what's preventing us from pulling over here and being baptized?
Well,
and I mean, shouldn't somebody want to get baptized?
No, not necessarily. It's
Why? They want to be identified with the church.
Yeah, kids don't know that. Infants don't know that. It's not based on their faith, anyways.
Now we come to, I think, a point of where we would disagree.
We may.
I'm not a Paleo-Baptist.
Yeah, and I very much am, because everything within our redemptions and even within our rituals always points to the benefit of another, and it's on behalf of them. So just as I view our faith being the faith that is the benefit for somebody else's justification and not for our own, baptism still falls in the same line. This is for the benefit of somebody else, not for myself. And so I am baptizing them for their benefit.
I agree to a point. I mean, but
yeah,
gosh,
but again,
children may be saved.
Baptism doesn't save.
They're not a part of the church. I mean, don't you have to be a Christian in order to be a part of the church?
Well,
we're probably getting into stuff that's a whole different issue now.
Well, maybe, but we're touching on it because you don't just baptize a baby. Like, I don't just baptize a baby and then just like toss them away or something. You know, they are there being, not only sponsored, and their parents, and it's their parents' faith, and their parents are part of that baptism and having them baptized. The whole congregation is a part of that baptism also.
But they're not really a part of the church.
The church is commissioned with raising them and taking care of them.
Well, sure, that's fine. But that didn't do anything for them. Baptism is meaningless then.
Baptism is not meaningless.
Meaningless.
It is not meaningless.
I just defined it as the church bringing somebody into the church, somebody else into the church. But what you're saying, in most circumstances, we don't know whether they're going to really be a part of the church, but we're hoping they are.
Well, okay. Let me back up a little bit here.
Hey, listen. We are going to have to leave because that's the end of this broadcast. But can we pick this up and keep on talking about it?
We can, but I just want to say this real quick. Okay. Church individual, body in a certain location as different from church big C universal. So we'll pick that up right after that in the next one.
All right.
Sounds good. All right, Michael. Hey, thanks for listening to Divergent Theology. You can visit our websites at credohouse.org or thetheologypit.com and make a donation. Support the ministry that way. Now, here's a quick look at next week's Divergent Theology.
All right, hey, listen, well, I guess we can pick that up, right? I mean, we can keep on talking about, because I'm really interested. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, and I was honestly...
I've never really considered paleo-baptism at all, so...
I just started riffing on stuff, and I'm just like, let's see where this goes.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be more prepared next time.
Let's do that. That'll be good.